Vikas Portal. Now the context is, the Department of Justice has introduced the Nyaya Vikas Portal for monitoring its centrally sponsored scheme, Nyaya Vikas Program for Judicial Infrastructure, with technical assistance of National Remote Sensing Center ISRO. Now, first thing that we need to understand with regard to this article is, what are centrally sponsored schemes? So, these schemes are partially funded by both the center as well as the states. Okay. And how much burden would be borne by the center government and the state government? This is predetermined. Okay. So, in certain states, it would be 60-40. So, 60 would be borne by the center government, 40 would be borne by the state government, or it would be 90-10. So, 90% of the cost would be beared by the central government and 10% by the respective state. Now, this mode of funding is with regard to northeastern states or special category states. Now, when it comes to the implementation of centrally sponsored schemes, it is done by the state government itself, okay, or the union territories. Now, when it comes to centrally sponsored scheme, there are three types of centrally sponsored scheme. One is core scheme. It basically relates to those schemes which are for the national development agenda. Okay. So, here both the center and the state government, they come and they act as Team India to further enhance the development of India. Example of core scheme is Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. Then we have core of core schemes. Now, these schemes basically focus on social inclusion and social protection. Example being MG Narega. Then we have optional scheme. Now, when it comes to optional scheme, it is up to the state that whether they want to implement this very scheme or not. Example, Border Area Development Program. Now, this is regarding the centrally sponsored scheme. Now, let's look into this Nyaya Vikas program, which is for the development of infrastructure facilities for district and subordinate judiciary and is being implemented since 1993-94. Now, when it comes to this very program, just try and understand that it is the responsibility of the state government to provide the requisite judicial infrastructure. So, that is why this program was, started by the government. This is a centrally sponsored scheme, was initially launched to provide central assistance to the state government or union administrators for constructing court halls, residential units for judicial officers or judges of district and subordinate courts. The scheme was further extended in 2021 and some new features like lawyers hall, toilet complexes, digital computer rooms were also added. So, when it comes to judicial infrastructure, it talks about physical infrastructure also, the digital infrastructure as well. Now, when it comes to the fund sharing pattern under the scheme, it is 60-40 for states other than northeastern and Himalayan states. Okay, so it is 90-10 for northeastern and Himalayan states, as we discussed right now, that this, usually this funding sharing pattern of 90-10 is with regard to northeastern states, Himalayan states or special category states, and 100% for the union territories. Now, let's look into the status of judicial infrastructure. Now, an all India survey was carried out by the Office of Chief Justice of India, and it found out that when it comes to the judicial infrastructure, we have this many judicial officers, but we have this many court halls. 26% of the court complexes do not have separate ladies' toilet, 16% do not have toilets for gents as well. 5% have medicinal facilities, 32% have separate record rooms, 51% have libraries, and 27% have a computer on judges' dais with video conference facility. So, this is the status of judicial infrastructure in India. Now, the thing that we need to understand with regard to this judicial infrastructure is, why do you need judicial infrastructure? First reason is, when you have poor judicial infrastructure, you have low women representation, especially in the higher judiciary. This was something which was highlighted by the CGI as well. Now, according to India Justice Report 2022, what we found out that in the Supreme Court, you only have 4 female judges. When it comes to High Court, we have 13% of women judges. When you look at the advocates, we have 15% of female advocates. And when we look at subordinate courts, we have 35% of the female judges which are there in the subordinate courts. So in order to enhance this women representation, we need good judicial infrastructure. Another reason being, when you have poor judicial infrastructure, it also impacts access to justice. This is a concept which we have discussed in detail in the previous recital videos. Now, access to justice, how it gets impacted? Now, this was something which came to light during the COVID-19 pandemic, wherein the courts have to move towards virtual mode of hearing. Okay. So, let's suppose if we do not have the requisite digital infrastructure, then how was the court supposed to move in towards this virtual mode of hearing during the COVID-19 pandemic? And because we witnessed some of the limitations when it comes to judicial infrastructure, when it comes to the digital assets. That is why we witnessed some issues with regard to access to justice even during the COVID-19 pandemic. Then, in order to enhance the efficiency, the productivity of the judiciary, we need good judicial infrastructure, as has been pointed out by various empirical studies. Then, we also need good judicial infrastructure or quality judicial infrastructure in order to prevent delay in justice. Okay, in order to prevent backlog. How come? Now, if we have requisite digital infrastructure, so the judges could take help of artificial intelligence and they could easily settle or adjudicate petty issues which are related to, let's say, violation of traffic, guidelines or traffic rules. So, if we have poor or we do not have good quality judicial infrastructure, then it also have impact on the judicial backlog which is there in our country. Now, another thing that we need to understand is why we are witnessing poor judicial infrastructure, although we have this scheme, Nyaya Vikas program that is there. It is because the states are not coming up with their own share of funds. Then, less than 1% of our GDP is allocated for creation of judicial infrastructure. And there is poor or underutilization of the funds which are provided under the centrally sponsored scheme. More than 90% of the funds are still underutilized. Why? Because when it comes to subordinate courts, the judiciary is not coming forward to take the responsibility of implementing infrastructure programs. Okay. So, these are the primary reason on account of which we are witnessing poor judicial infrastructure. Now, let's look into the key features of Nyaya Vikas Portal which has been created recently. It will help in empowering the stakeholders with seamless access to information, enhance transparency about funding, documentation, project monitoring and approval. It is a user-friendly login system with 4 types of login options. One is central user login, which enables the central government to release the funds to the states once they upload important documents to the home page. Then state user login, it allows the states to take a picture of ongoing project, upload it and submit the utilization certificate for the state. Then surveyor user, it allows the surveyor to select a project, submit observation and access the dashboard. Then approver user, it will allow to give approval to observations collected by a surveyor through either the web portal or mobile app with the icon turning green. So, it is a user-friendly login system. It will facilitate submission of utilization certificates through an online medium. It will help monitor fund release and utilization. So, it will also enhance transparency and accountability. It would allow geotagging of infrastructure created under the scheme. What is geotagging? Wherein we add the geographical identification, that is the information with regard to latitude and longitude with regard to that particular media. Okay. So when we do geotagging of infrastructure, it helps us to monitor that whether this infrastructure was actually created on the ground, okay, or not. So enhances the transparency and monitoring of infrastructure created under this very scheme. Now portal can be accessed through this very ID. Okay. Now we also have justice clocks. These are electronic signage system known as justice clocks, have been set up in different high court complexes across the country. It is an initiative to exhibit vital statistics of justice delivery system at court level and details about case instituted, case disposed. So it basically gives us the idea of case clearance ratio. Okay, then how many cases were disposed in a particular year in comparison to the number of cases that were instituted in that very year. Pendency of cases on day, week and monthly basis. It can be accessed by public in any court establishment or on the district court's website. Objective is to make functioning of courts accountable and transparent by sharing the status of case disposals. So through this very justice clock, we get to know that what is the status of pendency of cases in a particular court with the public. The benefit being, it will inform the stakeholders about court-related key parameters and bring awareness among the public by providing bird-eye view of court-related data. So this is the information which is displayed on this justice clock. It provides information based on National Judicial Data Grid database. Informs about disposal rate and services offered by court. Displays various schemes of Department of Justice. Similar initiatives have also been taken, like Just IS mobile app 2.0, the app for judicial officers for effective court and case management by monitoring pendency and disposal of not only their court but also for individual judges working under them. This app can also be used by High Court and Supreme Court judges too. Okay. So by using this, they can also monitor the pendency and disposal of cases of all the state and districts under their jurisdictions. Digital court is also an initiative to enable the court to go paperless by digitizing all its records. So it allows e-filing of different documents which are there. Then S3 VAS website. It is a cloud service which is developed for government entities to generate secure, scalable and Sugamya accessible website, because this website is also accessible to the Divyangs. As a service for publishing specified information and services related to district judiciary, it is a multilingual and citizen and Divyang friendly. Okay, so these all are the similar initiatives that we have taken in order to enhance transparency and accountability when it comes to the status of judicial, status of pendency of cases in the different courts across India.